Representative Hansen.
Present.
Hansen present. Senator Herr. Senator Herr. Commissioner Albrecht.
Here.
Commissioner Albrecht present. Senator Green. Here. Senator Green here. Representative Heinzman.
Here.
Representative Heinzman here. Commission member Langseth is excused. Commission member Reese.
Present.
Commission member present. Reese present. I'm going back to Senator Herr. Okay, we have 5 members present.
So 5 members of our 7-member committee being present, we have established a quorum. We have before us the minutes for our February 5th meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there, so those motion, do we need to vote on that? Because we're on,
Yeah, but you could just
Remote.
do verbal.
yeah. So all in favor of approving the minutes from February 5th, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. I'm going to do chair's discretion to move one item on our agenda up now before we begin our strategic planning discussion. We're going to move public testimony item 6 up to right now because we do have a testifier who's been waiting. And I want to make sure that that person has time to come before us. So please come to the podium and state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes for your public testimony. I'll let the staff get you fired up there so we make sure that your microphone is working and we can all hear you.
Madam Chair and people of the committee, thank you guys for letting me speak. As somebody who has a disability.
Could you please introduce yourself for us? Thank you.
Nathaniel M. Olson, a disability advocate. As somebody who has a disability in the state of Minnesota, I have seen the very outcomes of our people in the Department of Human Services that decide that our lives are not mattered in our way. And I have fought the opposition to have our voices to be heard. But sadly, we have to be silent because these people don't want to tell you what's going on. May 22nd, I have the most scariest time of my life. My guardian put me on a hold because I wanted a vacation to LA to just to deep breathe and stuff. Just the stress that I've been going through with court cases and all that sort of stuff. But the sad thing is that she would put me in a mental hospital just because I advocated for myself. So I ask you, what funding do we have provided for the people with disabilities? What funding do we need to get the help that they need? Because right now, we have no help. Our voices are being silenced by the evil of what the Department of Human Services is. And my guardian that I thought I could have trust betrayed my trust. And the fact of the matter that she would send me to a mental hospital away from my family and my friends and the people that support me, and plus my grandparents who love me dearly. How horrible could that be? How horrible if that was your child? And so I'm asking, there needs to be funds for our safety. We need to allow the police officers to make the right decision and not put it on in the people that are not here for us. Because I know very well my guardian just cares less about me. And I know by the way of the actions what she has done is showing that she doesn't care for people with mental and intellectual disabilities like myself, and it needs to stop. And these people need to be held accountable. And it's sad for me that I have to deal with this day after day, night after night, wondering what's going to happen. Do I believe that my parents did make a mistake? Yes, but they don't. But I do. Because I know that I feel like I was abandoned again to the state. Abandoned to somebody that I don't know. And the one thing I'm working on with my lawyer is to find a guardian that's going to love me and support me. And the fact of the matter that the Scott County of Human Services would not do that. And their only manner was to send me to the Dakota Conservative. They don't care about my happiness. Nobody of the team that I work with They do not care about my happiness. They care about their own needs. And it's scary because we're Minnesotans too. And I don't care if people in a wheelchair have to speak with their hands. We need our voices to be heard. So I'm asking, please figure out a budget plan for people with intellectual disabilities because there's 596,000 Minnesotans with disabilities. Thank you. Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is to begin our strategic planning schedule discussion, and I'm going
Mr. Chair, Ms. Chair, we cannot hear you.
I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Olson, for your comments. We're moving on our agenda to item number 3, strategic planning schedule, and I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Campana.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thought since it's been a little bit of a break since the subcommittee met, just to reorient everybody to where we are in the process and how the process is going to proceed over the next few months. So we've just completed the public engagement phase of strategic planning. We have 3 meetings scheduled during the presentation weeks for the full commission. So June 20th, June 26th, and June 28th, there will be subcommittee meetings on those days, presentation days. We'll have 1 meeting in July, the same day as the LCCMR meeting, so July 31st, and then 1 standalone meeting in August, August 20th. And we also have September 24th scheduled as a tentative meeting if needed. As you can see from the agenda, we're going to pick up the discussion on the vision and mission statement with the goal of having it finalized by hopefully today. You will be also discussing ENRTF goals today. These are the goals related to priorities for funding from the ENRTF. The plan would be to discuss these goals at the next couple meetings. We will then transition into discussing strategies under each goal. And then once we've discussed the strategies, this is where you'll pick up sort of LCCMR goals such as communications and outreach and begin during that discussion began during the winter and the proposal and solicitation review and recommendation process. While you're having those discussions, staff will be working on translating those ENRTF goals and strategies into a draft 2026 RFP. So sort of putting that language from the strategic that will be going into the draft strategic plan into potentially how it would look in an RFP. In lieu of one presentation on the public engagement process, what I'm going to do is present those results as it seems relevant to the discussion. So for example, today when we discuss the ENRTF goals, I will begin that with sort of discussion of some of the questions we asked the subject matter experts related to goals. Also at the full commission meeting, you heard the public survey results. So hopefully that will also inform your discussion. The final discussions we'll be having as part of this process will be related to measurable outcomes. So those will be sort of the last few meetings. Once you've had all the discussions, we're going to be staff's going to be taking all that work you did and putting it into a formal strategic plan for consideration by the full commission in November. So I just wanted to give everybody a quick update about where we are, where we've been, and where we're going.
Thank you, Mr. Campana. So we have the schedule before us, and Mike has just run through that for us. Are there any questions for staff on the schedule and the process moving forward? We'll get into it here a little bit more, but right now, is there anyone that has a question? Senator Green.
I might as well fire one at you. I'm going to probably I'll have to be remote on the 20th and 21st. Are you going to have your Wi-Fi stuff figured out by then? I guess it's kind of tongue in cheek, but I know there's been a few problems at home too. So I don't know if there's something going on a broader scale or what, but seems to be
I think
hit and miss on the Wi-Fi.
Thank you, Senator Green. I think it's the Wi-Fi fairies knows the day that LCCMR meets, and so they come in here and shut us down. Mr. Campana, do you have any other comments on that?
No, Madam Chair, we will do our best within our control.
Right, and thank you. And I appreciate that you're able to call in if you're not able to be in person, Senator Green, so that we make sure that we have your input for those discussions. Anything else? Seeing no hands raised on the remote folks, we'll move on to discussing the potential action on the vision and mission. And I'll just share that Mr. Campana is once again going to run through some of this information, and we also were able, he'll remind us that we did do an online survey of the subcommittee members to sort of rank our choices on the different languages that we put out there. And so my goal is today that we would come to a consensus and agreement and approve vision and mission statements. So with that, I'm going to let Mr. Campana go through a little bit more about the vision and mission.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as you mentioned, it's been a little while since you discussed the vision and mission statement, but you had those discussions in January. If you recall, we went through relevant constitutional and statutory language. We reviewed the current vision and mission statement. Members discussed concepts for a new vision and mission statement. Staff then used that discussion to draft a number of options for a new vision and mission statement. Members discussed them and whittled them down. And as Madam Chair mentioned, you responded to a survey sort of ranking which ones you thought were your top choices. 6 of the 7 subcommittee members responded to that survey. So that brings us to where we are now. So you should have a handout on your packet for the vision and mission statement. And what you'll see here is for the vision, which is where I'm going to start. I just wanted to start with just a reminder of what a vision is. So a vision is an aspirational statement or description of what the future will look like because of the work of the organization. So I provided a few examples here. I'm not going to go through them in any detail. Also, I provided you with the current ENRTF vision statement. So I thought that might have been interesting to you. As you remember, it's rather lengthy. So once again, I won't go through that. So with that, I'm actually going to go to page 3 of the handout, which is the new ENRTF vision options. So these were the 8 options that you discussed back in January. And then we did a survey to look at those results to see you all voted on. You all had 2 choices you could pick. Based on that survey, 5 members thought the top choice was Minnesota's lands, waters, fish, and wildlife are plentiful, healthy, resilient, and appreciated for their intrinsic value, as well as the benefits they provide us all. With that, Madam Chair, I'll let the members discuss.
Thank you. So as you're looking at this handout, page 3 at the top there, as you can see, well, there are 5 members who selected, 5 of 7 members selected that top choice, which is quite a good majority. And I'll just let comments come from members. Commissioner or Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move the top choice, number 5, to be the vision. The only question I would have is often we need to use plain language and intrinsic. Should it be intrinsic or should it be essential? But I'm not going to die on that hill. So I would just move the top choice.
Thank you, Representative Hansen. Representative Hansen has moved that the subcommittee approve the top choice. Is there discussion to the motion?
Yeah, I gotta
Senator Green.
I want to make sure that I've got the right handout. So I can see it. Okay, let me look at that. I might have missed it because I got a ton of papers when I printed off my own too. So I got extra copies. So okay. There.
Yeah, we want to make sure everyone has the right document in front of them and they know what we're discussing. So it's the handout or the document that was included in the packet or online, that on the front page it says vision, and it also talks about the current ENRTF vision. Senator Green?
No, I've got it in front of me now. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else have comments?
And Senator Green needs to turn his microphone on when he's speaking, but.
Thank you. It's hard to remember to turn on our mics, so we apologize to the folks watching online. Is there anyone online who has a question about this or a comment on the motion, to the motion? Seeing none, clerk will take the roll.
Hansen.
Aye.
Her.
Aye.
Aye. Albrecht.
Aye.
Green. Heinzman.
Aye.
Langseth is excused. Reese.
Aye.
That motion prevails. Thank you, members, for that. Moving on to the mission statement, Mr. Campana.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. In January, we presented you with a long list of options for a mission statement. Just to remind you, the mission statement, unlike the vision, whereas the vision is sort of the big picture, the mission statement is really what the commission itself can do. So it's a general statement of the purpose of the organization and what it does to achieve the vision that you just adopted. So once again, there's some examples here in the handout. I won't go through them. And there's the current ENRTF mission statement just as a point of comparison. So going to page 4 now of the handout, we presented you with a long list of options in January. You whittled that down to 6 different options. Once again, you took a survey on it with 6 of 7 members responding. You each were allowed to choose 2 of your favorite of the mission options for the mission statement. So 6 of you selected the following mission statement. The mission of the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund is to fund environmental and natural resource projects that best protect, conserve, preserve, and enhance Minnesota's air, water, land, fish, wildlife, and other natural resources.
Thank you, Mr. Campana. So Representative Hansen.
I would move the top choice for the mission statement.
Thank you. To the motion, any questions or comments? Seeing none, clerk will take the roll.
Hansen.
Aye.
Her.
Aye.
Albrecht.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Heinzman. Heinzman.
Yes.
Langseth is excused. Reese.
Aye.
So,
Madam Chair, that's 5.
so all 5 members have voted in the affirmative. And actually,
I'm sorry, that's
Senator Herr
6.
has joined us, and so we have 6 members
6.
voting
Thank you.
in the affirmative. Thank you. And so that motion prevails. And I'll just comment that it was a fun and robust discussion that this subcommittee had about what our current vision and mission statements are and what we should envision for the next 6 to 8 years of our strategic plan. And a lot of great discussion, a lot of input, and assistance by staff to sort of fine tune our comments from the last meeting and put them on a survey for us. So appreciate everyone who participated in that. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 5, discussion of ENRTF goals. And Mr. Campana is going to go through that and also has a presentation for us, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So much like I did in the main meeting, I'm going to share my screen here. So just give me one moment. All right. Can we get this on a full screen?
And as we're trying to get our data up on the screen for everyone watching at home, I'll just comment that I envision this to be a discussion and no decision-making today. I think staff would like our input on potential goals, additional goals, or changes to current goals, so that they can come back at a future meeting with some more refined language. So we're going to have a robust discussion, hopefully, but probably no decision-making on this today. Thank you. Mr. Campana.
All right, Madam Chair, I think we're almost ready here. Wonderful. All right, so as a lead into your discussion on ENRTF goals, I'm going to present some of the results from the subject matter experts survey relevant to the discussion, as well as a brief reminder of some distinctions we are making for the strategic planning process. So to begin with, I wanted to briefly remind everyone of how we are distinguishing a goal from a strategy. For the purposes of this process, a goal is what you, the LCCMR, want to accomplish over the next 6 years. In contrast, strategies are broad statements of how you will accomplish those goals. The other distinction I wanted to bring up for this process is the 2 different types of goals we're going to be discussing. So The first type of goal is an ENRTF goal. ENRTF goals are related to what will be funded over the next 6 years. For example, an ENRTF goal could be Minnesota has healthy and diverse wildlife and plant populations that sustain and enhance the state's environment, economy, and quality of life. In contrast, LCCMR goals are goals related to how the commission conducts its business and operates. For example, the January discussion related to LCCMR communications and strategies was a discussion of LCCMR goals. So an example would be Minnesota has healthy and diverse wildlife and plant population. Whoops, that's the same one. So anyways, an example of that would be the public knows how ENRTF money is being spent and what benefits the public is gaining from those expenditures. So those are the two types of goals. Today, the discussion is going to be about ENRTF goals. So moving on, as a reminder, there are currently 7 working goal statements in front of the subcommittee. Goal 1 is Minnesota's water resources are better managed for both water quantity and quality as a result of better understanding of the connections between surface water and groundwater. Working Goal 2 is Minnesota's environment, natural resources, and communities are resilient in the face of climate change, land use changes, and extreme weather events. Goal number 3 is Minnesota has healthy and diverse wildlife and plant populations that sustain and enhance the state's environment, economy, and quality of life. Working Goal number 4 is Minnesota's public and private lands, including forests, grasslands, and agricultural lands, provide long-term benefits to fish, wildlife, and people. Working Goal number 5 is all Minnesotans, especially young people, have access to and take advantage of opportunities for culturally relevant and innovative connections to the lands and waters of Minnesota. Working Goal number 6 is Minnesota achieves reliance on non-polluting renewable energy in all sectors, including transportation, building, industry, agriculture, and others. And working goal number 7 is Minnesota responds quickly and proactively to emerging environmental and natural resources issues. Once again, as a reminder, the first 6 of these working goals were developed during the 2019 strategic planning process with some minor wording changes the subcommittee made in January. Goal 7 was added by the subcommittee in January. So before you begin the discussion of these goals, I'm going to give you a quick overview of what we did to get out the subject matter expert survey and then run through some of the preliminary results from the subject matter expert survey related to goals. So unlike the public survey, which was broadcast to as many people as possible and encouraged to be shared, we sent a direct email invitation to over 1,000 people with expertise or experience in the environment, natural resources, agriculture, or outdoor recreation, including current and past project managers for LCCMR projects, current and past applicants for LCCMR, university and college faculty, federal, state, and tribal government professionals, and relevant professionals and nonprofit personnel. We received 360 responses to the subject matter expert survey, which we thought was an excellent response rate. And we're very happy that people took the time to respond to the survey. As I did in presenting the public survey preliminary results, I'd like to first go over the background of the experts responding to the survey. One of the things we asked them is what was their area of expertise. They could select up to 3. So this slide shows the results of that. About a third of the respondents consider themselves to have expertise in water quality, followed by land and wildlife habitat and management with about 28% having expertise there, followed by climate change, agricultural practices, environmental education, outdoor recreation, invasive species, aquatic habitat and management, forestry, the other category, energy, environmental or civil engineering, geology, soils and or mineral resources, water quantity, air quality, and the last one being recycling, reuse, and other waste management. Just so you're aware, the other option was generally used to provide more detailed expertise information. For example, if someone was an expert in wetlands or pollinators, they often use that category for that one. So a pretty good mix of subject matter experts responded to the survey. In terms of affiliation, roughly a third were affiliated with academia and nonprofits, followed by state and local government, who were between about 13% and 18%. We had about 10 responses each from experts affiliated with tribal groups and private entities. In terms of their relationship to the ENRTF and LCCMR, about 80% were affiliated with an organization that had applied for funding from the LCCMR, and 66 had received funding from the LCCMR. One of the first questions we asked these experts was to rank those working goal statements that I just read out from more important to achieve to lesser important to achieve. So the results of that were, among the subject matter experts, they thought the #1 goal to achieve was our second working goal. Minnesota's environment, natural resources, and communities are resilient in the face of climate change, land use changes, and extreme weather events. That was followed by the working goal statement that for Minnesota's water resources are better managed for both water quantity and quality. #3 was Minnesota has healthy and diverse wildlife and plant populations. I'm not going to read out the full statements that I just did. The fourth ranked goal was Minnesota's public and private lands, including forests, grasslands, and agricultural lands, provide long-term benefits. The fifth ranked goal was Minnesota responds quickly and proactively to emerging environmental and natural resources issues. The sixth ranked goal was Minnesota achieves reliance on non-polluting renewable energy in all sectors. And the seventh ranked goal was all Minnesotans, especially young people, have access to and take advantage of opportunities for connections to the lands and waters of Minnesota. So much like I did with the public survey, I'm going to do a little bit of look at how those results may have varied based on the experts' various other information collected. So how did they vary based on the area of expertise? It appears the answer is yes, that area of expertise did have some influence on what experts felt were the most important goals. And these next slides contain tables where dark red indicates the most important goal for each area of expertise and white the least important goal, sort of with a gradation throughout. It's a lot of information, once again, like it was for the public survey presentation, but what staff took out of this is those with a self-declared expertise in climate change, air quality, and energy tended to rate goal #6, the goal for non-polluting renewable energy, higher than other experts. And those with a self-declared expertise in land and wildlife management and outdoor recreation rated goal 3, the goal for diverse plants and wildlife, as the top goal. Continuing this, in this slide, it appears that those with a self-declared expertise in environmental education and outdoor recreation rated the goal 5, the goal for access and opportunities for connections, higher than other experts, but still not in the top 4. And finally, looking at this slide, those with a self-declared expertise in environmental education, oops, once again, I've repeated things. So on this slide, those with a self-declared expertise in land and wildlife management and outdoor recreation tended to rate goal #3 related to diverse plants and wildlife as the top goal. So some minor difference here based on areas of expertise. Now, while there were these differences based on expertise, there were also some general trends across experts. So goal 7 related to emerging issues and goal 5 related to access and opportunities and connections was in the bottom 3 for all experts. Goal 1 related to water resources was in the top 3 for all experts, except those with a self-declared expertise in land and wildlife habitat and management. Goal 2 related to resiliency was in the top 2 for all experts, except those with a self-declared expertise in aquatic habitat and management and the other category. So there were a little bit of variation here based on area of expertise, but something you might expect when people are rating goals and might favor the area where they have the most expertise. So did the rankings change based on experts' affiliated organizations' relationship to the NRTF and LCCMR? When we look at this, we see maybe a little bit of variation. Whether someone applied for or received the NRTF funding did not generally influence what experts thought were the highest priority goals. The top 4 goals and the bottom 3 goals were the same for both of those groups. But experts who had not received the NRTF funding or didn't know rated goal 5 related to access and opportunities and connections slightly higher than the other experts. In goal 7, the emerging issues was rated slightly lower in priority by experts who had not received or not applied for ENRTF funding. And finally, did the rankings change based on the subject matter experts' affiliation? It appears that affiliation did have some impact on how experts prioritize goals. However, staff haven't had time yet to determine if this is really about affiliation or if certain areas of expertise were concentrated in certain types of organizations. So for example, if many of our state government respondents were also experts in land and wildlife management, maybe that's why it might have been favored more or less by them. And then finally, let's see. Oh, sorry. But looking at these preliminary results, it does appear that experts from academia and nonprofits prioritize goal 2 related to resiliency slightly higher than other experts. State government experts prioritize goal 3 related to diverse wildlife and plants slightly higher than other experts. Tribal and private experts prioritize goal 4 related to public and private lands slightly higher than other experts. And finally, nonprofits, local government, and tribal experts prioritize goal 5 related to access and opportunities and connections higher than other experts. Having said all that, the bottom 3 goals were the same for all of these groups. We then had a few open-ended questions that may be relevant to your discussion. So we asked the subject matter experts, how can the ENRTF help Minnesota be a leader nationally and internationally on environmental and natural resources issues? We're still working on getting through these results and trying to summarize themes that may come up in them, but we have put together this word cloud. Words like fund, research, project, nature, environmental, resource, and support pop out. Your meeting packet also includes all of the responses to these questions, so if you want to review those, you can. The second question that we asked the subject matter experts that may also be helpful is there another goal that you think the NRTF could help Minnesota achieve? Once again, using a word cloud, we see water, resource, Minnesota, state, environmental pop out. We've gotten a little farther in terms of analyzing this information. So we sort of summarized keywords and concepts that staff saw in all these responses. And we do a word cloud based on that sort of keywords that staff came up. You see a little bit more here. You see words like wildlife, habitat, water, land, quality, education, research, engagement, collaboration, youth, equity, and many others pop out in terms of the responses to additional goals the NRTF could address. Finally, before I end this presentation and you begin your discussion of the NRTF goals, I wanted to remind you of the results from the public survey and what those respondents felt were the top areas for ENRTF to fund. So once again, the public's top focus and areas of order were land, wildlife, and wildlife habitat, lakes, rivers, and other aquatic habitat, climate change, water quality, outdoor recreation, agricultural practices, invasive species, environmental justice, energy use and production, water availability, recycling, reuse, and other waste management, and air quality in that order. So hopefully, Madam Chair, that gives you a good basis for you guys to begin your discussion on the goals.
Thank you, Mr. Campana, for that very comprehensive discussion about the subject matter expert survey responses. Can I ask you to go back to your 4th slide, which is the working ENRTF goal statement, so that we have those in front of us as we have our discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I can do that.
Okay, thank you. So as we all see, I think we had really good input from our subcommittee on what our working goals should be, because they seem to have really elicited a lot of good information from our subject matter experts. And we can also appreciate that there's a lot of data that's still being sifted through as far as the responses and what it means and how they overlap and correlate perhaps. But given that, and based on the discussion that we've had, I'd like to just go through the goals. We don't have to go through them one by one, but to begin with, I'd like to just open it up for comments from members. Senator Green.
Sure. Within the goals, and I've been looking at this stuff for a long time, and some of the things that always seems to be absent is the data itself when we're looking at the goals we're moving forward. Like, for instance, water quality. We talk a lot about PFAS, and I was looking up the amount of PFAS that's in the waters in the Mississippi going through Minneapolis, for instance, and it's at 0.05 parts per trillion. So I did some little research, and 4 parts per trillion is the equivalent of a grain of sugar dissolved in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And yet in the river, we've got 0.05% or parts per trillion. So, you know, if we're sending this stuff out to the public and asking them to evaluate what their goals are or what they think we should be spending the money on, we should have that information that's accessible to them. Because a lot of the stuff is like, it's like a high level word game. For instance, quality of life, define quality of life. It depends on who you are and where you're living. I mean, my quality of life might be much different than someone else's. And so I think that we should be basing a lot more of this on the statistics. I know that the MPCA, years ago when I was in the House, I used to get, before COVID, I used to get the updates of the rivers in our area and how much nutrients were in them and how much pollution was in them. And I watched a steady decline, but we never saw those out in the open. So is there a way we could get that information when we do these studies and when we make our decisions, to have that kind of information in front of us? We used to measure stuff in parts per million, and now we're up to parts per billion, and then now parts per trillion. And it's pretty small amounts that we have in there, and yet we still look at it as everything's an emergency. And I'd like to focus on the things we really need instead of the same projects that we see year after year.
Thank you, Senator Green. Representative Heinzman, your hand is up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my suggestion was going to be potentially offered early on in the presentation, because I'm somewhat amused by the self-proclaimed experts that I appreciate staff mentioning, that as we go through the presentation, we should kind of keep that in the back of our minds. And it does somewhat track with Senator Green's comment. I wish that we were working through this process with more actual data, as opposed to what I am assuming is guidance offered by folks who may or may not have expertise in the areas that they claim to have expertise. So this, quite honestly, feels a little off, this discussion. And if staff going forward through this whole discussion were to continue to point out that the guidance being offered was from self-proclaimed experts, I would really appreciate that, because I think it drives it home, unfortunately, that we may need to broaden the base on which we're putting together what could be a very impactful statement for those seeking support from the ENRTF going forward. Because I would prefer that that guidance and those suggestions are being made by folks that were confirmed to have knowledge in the fields that they're offering expertise. Just a statement. Madam Chair, thank you for the chance to make that comment.
Thank you, Representative Heinzman. Staff, Mr. Campana, I also had the question on how did people self-identify as subject matter experts? Did they put that in themselves, or did they select from a list? And maybe you can respond also to Representative Heinzman's question.
Yes, Madam Chair. So one of the first questions we asked them is what was their area of expertise, and they could select up to 3. So that was we didn't assign that to them. So that's where the statement in terms of their self-declared expertise.
Mm-hmm.
If it's helpful, Representative Heinzman, while the survey was anonymous, I can provide a list of the names that the invitation was sent to and their affiliation, if that's helpful, and maybe reassure you that we were dealing with experts who know quite a lot in this field.
Thank you, Representative Heinzman.
Thank you for the, I guess, clarification. While a list of those that offered advice might be reassuring to some extent, without without going on about this, I would just say there might be a better process next time to get input from folks that we can confirm those credentials in each survey that they offer. For example, education, employment, other data that's there that we could see in this presentation to some extent, or at least view. I'm not sure how to do that anonymously. I'm sure there might be some technicalities there, but it's just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you. I have next Commissioner Reese and then Representative Hanson. Commissioner Reese.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think it's always challenging to get people that don't have any bias, and I think we're making progress. We had 60% of the people responding seem to be connected to funding from LCCMR. So, obviously there's a somewhat of an implicit bias because they want to get funding. But one thing in particular that I want to comment on is climate change. And, that seems to rank high always, and that's a big category. And what is underneath that category? Is it, reducing fossil energy consumption? Is it agricultural land changes, both of which were listed, but they ranked lower? So I think that's going to be an issue moving forward from a RFP standpoint, is how do you address climate change and what should be underneath that? Because I think those two should be on there. Decarbonizing industry should be on there as potential opportunities for funding. One example is we saw, we always hear climate change when you go to these public events, but in just noting in our last process, we had two or three proposals on sustainable aviation fuel, which is one of the largest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions, and they ranked very low. So it's kind of, I think there's a disconnect on what we can do about climate change and what we should be studying there and what we should be funding and what the actual applications are in research projects. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reese. Representative Hanson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of observations, and I think for goal statements, these are pretty good. A couple words I'd like to see somewhere, and maybe it's larger, is the word evaluation or the word outcome, because at some point in terms of measurement, and I guess this is following up on Senator Green and Representative Heinzman, having those words somewhere that we are, when we're funding things, or maybe we fund things specifically to look at some type of evaluation of effectiveness. When we fund a trail, we can go see the trail. If we fund some of the research, we've gone out to some of those, but what is the evaluation or the outcome? So I'm not sure how that fits in. I'll just put that in there for an observation. Second observation is, I think, and I'm not sure if this is the point, but what we did today, where if we do nothing, if the amendment reauthorization does not happen, we are probably going to see significant changes in terms of the amount of money that comes in, even if we do nothing, that we will be going from 100 to 105 to 110, that maybe within 10 years, we're at 150 million of money, of funds available in the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund. If the amendment passes, then we have a significant more amount of money. So I think somewhere in this process, we need to acknowledge that or recognize that. And then thirdly, on goal number 5, it jumps out at me, all Minnesotans, especially young people. When we looked at the public response, the area that was way low compared to everybody else was were the young people. We were way below the 18 to 34 demographic in terms of response. And we were high, as we often are, on seniors responding to things. And so how do we actualize what we're doing both in the LCCMR and in the trust fund of young people engagement? And maybe goal 5 is talking about students, but I look at that 18 to 34 group and how do we engage that? These are all general things. I'm not sure if this is the exact place to put them, but particularly as more funds become available, how do we reach people who may or are likely not aware of the fund or the process?
Thank you, Representative Hansen. Are there any other hands up for folks that wanted to make a comment in a general discussion? Seeing none right now.
Yep.
There are two, I'm sorry. There are, Representative Heinzman again?
I apologize, Madam Chair. I will drop my hand.
Thank you. Commissioner Reese.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to take a closer look at Goal 6 or direct people's attention to Goal 6. I would like to see reliance on non-polluting or non-polluting struck, and to say reliance on renewable energy, because some people believe that biomass is polluting. There's arguments both ways, and I think if we have this in our goal, it limits our ability to conduct that type of research and other projects in that area.
I apologize, Commissioner Reese. Could you repeat that? Because I think your mic cut out at the moment, or I couldn't hear it.
Sorry.
So could you repeat your thought there, please? Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to direct commissioners' attention to Goal 6 and the word non-polluting. It would be nice to strike that out, because some groups believe that biomass could be polluting, and I think that's an potentially important industry for especially northern Minnesota. And if we have that non-polluting language in there, it might mean that we limit our funding opportunities for those renewable energies that are non-polluting, and biomass might be considered non-polluting. So it's a minor word change, but I think it has an impact on its meaning.
Thank you for that comment, and staff has noted that, as well as the other comments from Representative Hansen about the words evaluation or outcomes. Anyone else that wants to comment in general? I do. No, this is just subcommittee. Thank you. I do want to just remind us again on the presentation. So on page 3, it talks about our TF goals are goals related to what will be funded over the next years, and LCCMR goals are goals related to how the commission conducts business and operates. And so these working goals, staff, I'm going to put you on the spot here just to remind us, these are overall goals that help the LCCMR understand what are the priorities for funding. Would that be a correct statement?
Yes, Madam Chair, that would be a correct statement.
Okay. So whether we're talking about PFAS and Senator Green, I want to comment that your point is well taken, because at one point, the amount of PFAS in the city of Bemidji's water, for example, met state guidelines, but then the state guidelines were changed. And so our PFAS mix didn't match what the state guidelines were. So, but I think the point here is not whether or not there's high or low contaminants in water, for example, but whether or not our water resources are managed well for water quantity and quality. And it's a guiding goal for us to, as the LCCMR, to help us decide, what kind of projects does our state really believe are important, which would be the same for all of the goals that are listed. And I do want to commend the commission for, and the subcommittee for, and the work that was done in 2019, honestly, prior to our work, to develop goals 1 through 6, more or less what we have in front of us, with a few tweaks that this subcommittee has done, but then also adding number 7, because we recognize that there are some emerging environmental and natural resource issues. But I think these are somewhat high level, not so much in the weeds as far as the data of what is an expectation for one area or another. That's just my personal comment. Any response, Senator Green, or do you want to?
I mean, it doesn't really matter if I respond, I guess, because we're just throwing out our
it's
ideas.
a discussion. Yeah.
But the thing is that we are making the decisions based on the information before us, and when we're looking through the projects and And when I look through them and I see so many from the university doing studies that I've seen, we've funded in so many other places, but none of it is ever tells me, you know, we studied this portion of the Mississippi River, just for an example. And this is where we're finding the pollution, and that's not there. It's just a broad, we're gonna get money to do a study on this. And almost all the money goes into personnel, of course. And so we're funding the University of Minnesota, where the state has become a huge funder, for instance, of Ducks Unlimited and Pheasants Forever. And just in the one bill this year that went to legislature, there was $30 million between them. So we're actually taking private organizations and using state money to fund them. And I want to see results. And so we don't, if you don't know what the statistics are going in and the data is going in, how do you know what the result is going to net you in the end? And it's just information I'd like to have. And if it's in the goals to say, you know, we want to know on your study, you know, why you're bringing this, not only why you're bringing it forward, because that's in there, but what is the data that shows that this is needed?
And just a comment, maybe I'll put staff on the hot seat again and ask either Mr. Campana or Ms. Nash. Is that something, it sounds more like something that might be included in an RFP request, that you would provide backup data for the reason we need to do this particular project or something like that. That might be as helpful as anything for LCCMR commissioners. So that might be something to discuss as far as an RFP change or maybe consideration in the future.
Yes, Madam Chair. I mean, we do ask in the proposal for people to state the problem, but they do it very briefly. But certainly what Senator Green is discussing sounds like something that could be an LCCMR goal, and see something to discuss as part of those LCCMR goals.
Thank you. And then I also just wanted to mention, in particular, Representative Heinzman, I know I share some of your concerns about the public matter experts who responded and who they are and you know, what is their expertise. But I just want to remind everyone that at the LCCMR meeting, we got a 65-page document of public response. So we have a very robust public survey that we're not looking at today. We're only looking at the subject matter expert survey, but in the future, because it's so many open-ended question responses that the staff have had to sift through and try to tabulate and understand sort of for us, give us the big chunks out of that when you put it through the sieve, I guess, that will be coming at a future meeting. And so it will balance out a bit. I think the public or the subject matter expert testimony that we received through this survey, would that be correct, Mr. Campana?
Yes, hopefully we'll be able to provide you with a lot more information once we can analyze that a little more.
Right. So we're just at scratching the surface here of all this data that we've collected through these wonderful surveys, and it's our first blush at looking at them. So having said that, I will look to see if anyone's hands up, and if no one is, I'll ask if there are any particular additions or changes that you'd like to recommend on the goals to staff. Is there someone with their hand up? Oh, Commissioner Reese.
I put my hand down. Commissioner Heinzman has his hand up though.
Okay, Commissioner Heinzman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And having served here for quite some time, I have to respond to the comment that you had just made. Yes, I agree. Public comment is very helpful, and we appreciate those that make the effort to take advantage of that opportunity. And I would hope that it gives us a good data point. I will also point out, though, as it's been pointed out in the past, we also need to take some of those responses and even as a whole, potentially with some, with potentially, I guess maybe the best way to say, just with a grain of salt, that very large organizations will often use those surveys to activate their members, which is fine, to sway the data point one way or another, depending on that organization's goals. As much as possible, I hope that we are seeking or a more broad base of Minnesotans that maybe they don't belong to an organization, but they still have opinions. And that's part of why I really support these outreach opportunities that are all across the state. I think that you'll get more interest when they, there's one in Brainerd, there's one in other places all over. Those, I think, may be a better model. So just in a response to your comment, Madam Chair, I appreciate that. Yes, there is public comment, but let's not forget that those opportunities are often passed around by very large organizations in Minnesota and other places to sway the results. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments for staff on any of these goals that are before us, goals 1 through 7? I see Commissioner Reese, you have your hand
Yep.
up again?
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I agree. It would be great to have broader applications and broader proposals coming in from all across the state, from various organizations, from individuals. Frustratingly, that's not happening. And I don't necessarily think it's the LCCMR staff or the commission's fault. I think people just have to and organizations have to take some responsibility and be aware of these. We had a listening session in Detroit Lakes. One person from the community in the region came. One person. So we had all the staff that put the time and effort into it. The commission members put their time and effort into it. And that was, so I don't think it's necessarily staff and commission members and the approach and the goals that we're using here that dictates that. I think people themselves have to take some responsibility. And I think that's the major problem, is that we're not seeing people stepping up and looking at this responsibility and putting a priority on it.
Thank you. Are there any other comments before we move on the discussion of the goal statements that are in front of us? I think that they're looking pretty good. We like them, and they seem to have been well received. So I'm going to move on from that discussion. Mr. Campana, any questions for the commission on what we've commented?
Well, Madam Chair, we can definitely move on. Also, I didn't know if you wanted to maybe go through these one by one, sort of
Okay.
have commissioners get a chance to specifically state if they're what they like about that goal, what they don't like about that goal, if there's wording changes. That would be helpful for us as staff in terms of coming back to maybe with a better set of, unless you really like them the way they are right now.
Well, I think we've heard a couple of comments, so that's a good idea. I had planned to do that one by one, and I just failed. So let's start, honestly, let's start at the bottom and work to the top, because sometimes that's a more interesting process. Goal number 7, Minnesota responds quickly and proactively to emerging environmental and natural resources issues. Is there anyone who would like to comment on that goal? Seeing no one raise their hand, we'll assume, staff, that we like that goal. Goal number 6, Minnesota achieves reliance on non-polluting renewable energy in all sectors, including transportation, building, industry, agriculture, and others. Commissioner Reese has asked us to strike the word non-polluting, so I don't have any problem with that. I'm definitely, being from the forest industry area of the state, production of biomass and pellets for fuel is an important potential use for our wood products. So I take his point well. Anyone else want to comment on goal number 6? Senator Green.
I don't know, it's not going to change the statement at all, I guess, but we will continue to push toward the renewables. We're sticking a lot of money in it. We still know that it's not achievable. The goal that's out there is not achievable. And it continues to drive up energy prices higher, and it affects us all when we continue to move down this road without without proper data, without and information. And I think that it would flow back into some of the things that Commissioner Reese said, why not too many people come to the meetings? And one of the reasons is in Greater Minnesota, as you know, Madam Chairman, Chairwoman, that we work during the day. And the people that are between 18 and 34 don't have time to take off of work to go to certain meetings because they're busy feeding their families. And when we continue to drive up their energy costs, that makes it worse. So I have a problem with this. I think that we're already working on that in other areas, and I would like to see if we're going to be using the ENRTF funds, I would like to see actual on-the-ground projects as always, instead of the study after study and stuff. But so, just a comment.
Thank you. Any other comments? I have Commissioner Reese up again.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make comment that the meeting in Detroit Lakes was in the evening, on a Friday evening. So it wasn't during the day. And, you know, I share this frustration with you. The way it sounds is that we need to get these people coming and talking about this then, because, you know, people I talk to, they want renewable energy. They want to see that incorporated. And I'm happy to share data with you that we can meet the goals that we have for the state.
Thank you. Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I'm wondering about the words achieves reliance. If that actually should be achieves innovation on renewable energy for our purpose here as a goal with the trust fund, rather than reliance. I mean, the reliance is really the goal. We've set a statutory goal for reliance. And if we're going to be using the trust fund for something, it should be for innovation. So I would suggest changing it to Minnesota achieves innovation on renewable energy in all sectors, ...
Thank you. Other comments on goal 6, or are we ready to move on to goal 5? Okay, well, let's move on. Does that help on goal 6 a bit? Goal 5, all Minnesotans, especially young people, have access to and take advantage of opportunities for culturally relevant and innovative connections to the lands and waters of Minnesota. Any comments from commission members on how we might improve or keep that as it is? Seeing no hands go up, I think that one is going to stand pretty much as it is. And as you all know, this is not the end of the day for these. We'll be able to review them again, so you can go home and make more comments. Number 4, goal 4, Minnesota's public and private lands, including forests, grasslands, and agricultural lands, provide long-term benefits to fish, wildlife, and people. Pretty straightforward. Are there any hands going up? Representative Hansen.
I would add wetlands.
Add wetlands to the forest, grasslands, and ag lands. Any other comments on goal 4? Seeing no hands go up, we'll
Madam
move
Chair.
to goal. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner
sorry.
Reese.
Yeah, just a quick thought. We don't have any of the geologic resources, mineral resources listed there. Is that something that we should add as well?
So that we want the Minnesota's public and private lands, including forest, grasslands, ag lands, mineral resources, provide long-term benefits to fish, wildlife, and people. Are you suggesting we add mineral resources?
I'm just raising that question since we've covered almost everything else as far as Minnesota resources.
Comments from other members? Commissioner or Representative Hansen.
Those mineral resources would be either private or public lands, not a feature. So you'd have surface rights or other. So I would recommend keeping it as it was.
Yeah, so Minnesota's public and private lands provide long-term benefit. So they would be included in that as the suggestion.
Yeah.
Commissioner Reese, any other comment on that? Or?
Nope, I'm
Okay.
good.
Goal number 3, moving on. Minnesota has healthy and diverse wildlife and plant populations that sustain and enhance the state's environment, economy, and quality of life. So Minnesota has healthy and diverse wildlife, plant populations that sustain and enhance the state's environment, economy, and quality of life. Anyone going to want to comment on that, or we like that one? Seeing no hands go up, let's move on to goal 2. Minnesota's environment, natural resources, and communities are resilient in the face of climate change, land use changes, and extreme weather events. Minnesota's environment, natural resources, and communities are resilient in the face of climate change, land use changes, and extreme weather events. We like that one. I don't see any hands going up. Thank you. We'll move on to goal 1. Minnesota's water resources are better managed for both water quantity and quality as a result of better understanding the connections between surface water and groundwater. I'll just comment that this seems to be somewhat specific to understanding the connections between surface water and groundwater, but I could be proved wrong on that. Any comments on that goal 1 from members? I would put a period at the end of quality and say Minnesota's water resources are better managed for both water quantity and quality. If you want to talk about surface water and groundwater, that to me would be a separate goal, but just a thought. Any other commission members? Representative Hansen? Did you have a comment on that?
Agree.
And I don't know what that goal would say, but staff can maybe bring us back a draft one on the connection between surface water and groundwater and the management of water quality and quantity. It seems to be 2 different thoughts in this particular goal. Any other comments on that goal 1 from members? Senator Green.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. On that, that's something too that I've looked at for a long time. And if there was a way to word that so that we could more look into existing data, because we know a lot about the connection between surface water and groundwater now.
Mhm.
And just like if you look through the projects, you'd notice that a great number of them from the university were just compiling existing data. And so we continue to stick money into things that we really already know. So if there was a way to, if you're going to add another goal to that after the period, or whether it's the second half of goal 1, I don't know how you'd word it, but maybe the staff could do that in such a way that said, instead of understanding that we should be using existing data that we have between surface water and groundwater connections. If that makes sense to anybody. I don't like
Okay.
studying the same thing over and over
Okay.
if we have it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like I say, this is just going through this a second time around that we've looked at these goals. So we have more information to inform us on this discussion because of those surveys that we've done. But I, for one, have not read all the comments on 65 pages of public open-ended answers. So I'm assuming that other members have also not done that. So it's going to be a project for me to familiarize myself with some of the feedback that we have received and see what Minnesotans are saying. But I think, is it clear to staff what those 2 comments that you've received here from Senator Green and myself and Representative Hansen? Anyone else on the commission or subcommittee? Mr. Reese.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would recommend just striking the last part of that sentence, as a result of better understanding connections. I think.
Yeah, so just take it.
Part,
yeah, forget
yes.
about.
And I went to add another goal. I think it covers what we need to know there.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm not big on adding another goal either. And perhaps we've met that goal since 2019. It's possible that we have a better understanding between surface water and groundwater. So there you have it on goal 1. Anyone else on goal 1 before we close out this discussion? Seeing no more hands go up or voices raised, we'll give that to staff. And Mr. Campana, is that helpful to have gone through that a bit?
Yes, Madam Chair, that's very helpful, and we'll take this back. And I think what will happen is when we discuss strategies under each of those goals, it might also influence the wording of the goal itself. If you want to go back to some of those goals and based on the strategies you're seeing under them, you might say, maybe we should modify this a little bit. So I think this will continue to be an iterative process working with the goals.
Thanks for that reminder about working on strategies, because I think that's where Representative Hansen's comments about evaluation and outcome might come in as qualifiers or quantifiers for our strategies. Increase outcomes or improve evaluation or those kinds of qualifying statements. All right. So that's closes our discussion on ENRTF goals, and we've done public testimony and looking at our agenda. Is there anything else for the good of the cause? Go to staff to begin with. Ms. Nash, is there anything else for the commission or the subcommittee?
Madam Chair, I do not have anything.
Okay, and Mr. Campana.
Nope, Madam Chair, we are good.
All right, so with that, I will call us adjourned. Thank you.